listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome.
Good morning, all of you wonderful, beautiful women out there listening. I was at a cocktail party the other night and a man came up and said he loved my show. And I went, really? Oh, I like that. So I should say thank you, men and women, for listening to Second Wind. Now, I made a promise a long time ago I'd always have fabulous, worthwhile interviewees and guests. So today is no exception. You are going to love the subject, and I think you're going to walk away with a new reality of your food choices, because it's pretty prevalent in the United States that we have GMOs in our food. And so anyway, we are going to talk with Emily Francis. Now, she has come a very long distance to talk to us. She now lives in Malta, but she did live in Atlanta, Georgia. And so anyway, she is an author of 5 books, a radio host, a columnist, and a wellness expert. She is trained. We won't go into all of her, but this has been a passion of her life. So the body and the wellness definitely is one of her passions. So I hope she'll share that passion to us. But in 2020, she and her family decided to move to Malta. Now, you know what was happening in 2020, right? We were all panicking. So share with us, Emily. Welcome. Share with us why you took such a tragic choice to go to Malta. Was the family really willing to make that change?
We were. We actually all were. We got lucky because I wanted to leave. I love the United States and I'm proud to be an American, truly. But I always think the word "but" negates so much of what we say. But however, I still need to say it. I wanted to raise my children in a safe space. I wanted to raise my children in a place where they didn't have to do active shooter drills. I wanted to raise my children in a place where we didn't have to read every single ingredient and know that there was constant hidden agendas in our food that is so dangerous and damaging, that are raising the #1 country of autism, of sensory processing disorders, of so many issues that are chemical based. And I wanted out. And so when 2020 hit, and my husband went online for work and no longer had to go into the office, I became relentless. Okay, now, if you don't have to go into the office, then what are we still doing here? And his boss agreed, and his boss made it possible. So they moved here too. His boss is from Wales, he's Welsh, but he's been in Atlanta for years. And him and his wife were on a trip, and they got sidetracked over to Malta because of COVID. And his wife looked around and she goes, I could live here. And he called the prime minister, brokered a deal, and off we all went. So we didn't go alone. And we went with our children, obviously, and my husband and our 4 animals. We took 3 dogs and a cat. We didn't leave anyone behind. And we'd never visited over here. So our boss had, and he did a really good job showing us the way and helping us find ourselves. But it was, I'm not a traveler by nature. That's not something that I do. I'm not a wanderlust kind of person. So this was an enormous change for me, but I wanted it so bad because it was so much more than just, I want to live someplace. It was, I want to live in a place where my kids are safe to grow up. And I know, especially today, having this conversation, yesterday marks 100 mass shootings since January 1st in the United States. So I'm glad to not be there, and I'm super sad to see it still so out of control. But everybody has their opinions on that. I'm just really happy that my children, that I drop them off in the morning and I feel safe knowing that I'm going to pick them up in the afternoon. In fact, we have police sitting outside all the schools here. They have a huge government presence in a safe way. And it's gated, and children don't know what an active shooter drill is because people here are not allowed to carry guns. period.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
it's a totally different, in fact, you don't realize how traumatized you are until you get to a safe space. And it took, like, we went to a park and the kids wanted to play hide and seek. And I
Uh-huh.
looked at the other parents and I was like, no, this is my definition of hell. No, my kids are not playing hide and seek in a public park.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And they're like, okay, this is a big deal. And I'm like, to me, it's a huge deal. It's a no. And now I'm like a lot more comfortable. Like the
Yeah.
kids run around at the park and I'm not flipped out having to have to see at their every move. I don't
Yeah.
leave them, on their own, but my friend has noticed like, wow, you have calmed down so much because it's
Mm.
almost 3 years now that we've been here. And it
Mhm.
took some time to decompress and go, wow, okay, I'm safe here, you
Yeah.
know.
How did your family adapt to the schooling and all that to
Oh,
your new home?
well, the schooling here is fantastic. It's beyond. It's not a broken education system because we go to a British school, and
Mhm.
it's really amazing because there's so many international children. But
Oh.
the hardest part was that they start school younger here, so both of my children had to skip a grade, and that was tough.
Oh. Yeah.
But that, so they're in a, so, and my oldest, I had held back because in America, the cutoff is summer, and in Malta,
Mhm.
the cutoff is January. So I had held her back. So she had to skip 2 grades. So we had
Wow.
literally just finished half of first grade in America because I had already pulled them out of public school that last year for
Uh-huh.
fear of all that, and
Yeah.
found a homeschool. It was a Montessori homeschool program. So they
Yeah.
went to school 3 days a week and then we homeschooled them the other two. But the Montessori place didn't believe in electronics. So when COVID hit, they just left us high and dry. And we still had to pay the tuition and we were on our own. So my children really missed a year and a half of school, and my oldest missed 2.5. So she had literally gone through half of first grade in America and moved here going into level 4. So that
Oh.
was
Oh.
so hard,
Yes.
but it was with kids her own age. And she used to always hate that she was the oldest. And now
Uh-huh.
she's in with all these kids that are her age. But for us, this sounds really crazy, but COVID saved us over here because it allowed a lot of grace in the school system for the children
Mhm.
to fall behind and it not be just one kid.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
that's how we got into such a good school, is because of COVID, because so many people had left. And it's also how we were able to manage our way through something so challenging because we
Mhm.
had a lot of support here. They didn't do online, like they gave you an option to do online, but they never made it mandatory. So my children came here and went to school.
Ah, with their masks.
Well, everybody here wears masks. It wasn't a political
Even
draw.
now? Do they wear the
No,
mask?
no, no. Mm-mm. And
No.
we were one of the first to let go because the country just, it's different because you have third generation families here. So people
Mhm.
really look out for each other because they don't want their grandparents to die. They
Right.
think about that. It's a small, really small island. The whole population is just under 500,000.
Yeah.
So it's a totally different world, but it is a European country, and it was the first of the EU to ban GMOs. I know we're going to get into that conversation,
Yes.
and I write for the tourism magazine in
Mhm.
Malta, and my column, my monthly column is called Emily in Malta. It's a take on Emily in Paris, of course. And I go and I interview local farmers
Right.
about their produce, of how they harvest and grow without using these pesticides. How
Uh-huh.
has this lifelong generational farms been able to maintain? And then we also eat so local here because everything has to be imported if it's not made here, if it's not
Yeah.
grown here. So we try really hard to stick with Malta and Sicily because it's only 60 miles away.
Yeah.
So everything's seasonal. I mean, really, the majority of food here is seasonal. So I follow the seasons and I meet the farmers and I learn the tricks of the trade. And it just makes eating mindfully a completely different concept than I think the way we used to think about it. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah. But let's go back and help my listening audience by giving a definition to GMO.
GMO
Because
means
I had to research
genetically,
it.
okay. Oh, really?
Yeah.
GMO means genetically modified organisms. So there's a company, if you remember back in Vietnam, there was a company that made Agent Orange and it caused
Yeah.
cancer for so many people. That's the same company that designed and makes GMOs. They're still there. It's still
Oh,
them. It's Monsanto. And they
oh,
are
yes.
heavily funded by the government. And
Yeah.
it is, so it's a spray called glyphosate. And it's banned and illegal in 63 countries in the EU, including Malta. And it's
Mhm.
sprayed on the plants in order for it to kill all the bugs so that the plants can grow much larger. That's why you have such large and seedless watermelons and things like that. But the glyphosate has been linked to lymphoma and other types of cancer, autoimmune
Mhm.
disorders, sensory processing in children. It definitely lends to some issues in the autism spectrum. And everybody that is into this world knows it, and it's been proven, and it's gone to court and everything else. But you have some that are blind and totally lack the education, and the others that push the agenda. So unless you really know, that's why at an American grocery store you can buy organic or you can buy the cheaper. But if
Mhm.
you go organic, you have to pay like 3 times as much. You have to be rich to be healthy. And in
Right.
like places where I live now, it's all one rack of fruit. You don't have to
Ah,
go find the secret one. They're all organic. And
uh-huh.
so that's been such a pleasure to just go and go, oh, carrots are on sale this week, and not go, oh,
Uh-huh.
which aisle am I in? Am I in the organic aisle or
Yeah.
am I in the junk aisle? And the thing is, it got so out of control. Like the United States has a group called the Environmental Working Group. We don't
Uh-huh.
have to have that here. But in the Environmental Working Group in the United States, they let out a sheet every year called the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. Are you familiar with those?
No.
Okay, so the clean 15 means the 15 foods that you don't have to buy organic and they're still going to be healthy. The dirty dozen is do not even bother buying this food unless you buy it organic because it is so toxic for you. Number one every year is strawberries. So you
Oh,
spray those
really?
strawberries and they just absorb all that toxic garbage and then you're eating it. So it's actually healthier to eat a chocolate bar than it is to eat a strawberry if you want something sweet, because at least then you're not eating so much toxic junk. Now, here's
Yeah.
another little tip. Here's what made me start writing in the Maltese articles to begin with, which is
Yes.
kind of fun. Potatoes. I
Mhm.
watched on Dr. Oz a million years ago this thing about the standard American potato goes through 5 rounds of bleaching before it hits your plate. 5 rounds. The seeds are
Bleaching.
bleached, the soil is bleached. It's all with those poisons.
Ah,
And so they're all this toxicity. So by the time you eat your potato, it is
yeah.
so wasted in garbage, toxic chemicals, but you don't
Right.
know it. And
Yeah.
so here, the potatoes come right out of the ground, and there's none of that, and it's illegal. And so, my first interview here with my first farmer grows potatoes for Air Malta, and he
Uh-huh.
let me go and pick the potato. Like we dug for potatoes together in the
Yeah.
soil, and he showed me all the EPA, the environmental protections. They get the soil tested every year. They make sure that it's really clean. They make sure that if they do spray, there's a thing here that goes from like old world France, and it's like vinegar and copper, and it keeps the insects away, but it's not
Oh,
dangerous to you.
right.
And then there's other things like when you see the fruit trees here, you'll see these yellow tapes hanging from the branches. That's what catches the bugs. I mean, there
Oh,
are other
yeah.
ways to keep your fruit protected, but
Right.
it's just gotten so it's bought and paid for by big pharma. And
Yeah.
so it's a huge problem. And it's one that now that I live someplace else, I don't, there's a lot of people that move from other countries into the United States. And about 3 years later, they start getting autoimmune disorders. And it's because their
Mhm.
bodies aren't used to those chemicals.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, it goes so deep, but it's, I'm not doing it to scare people or make people mad. I'm doing it because it messed up my children for a very long time. And so what originally made me start thinking about moving to a different place and being in a GMO free was an old my child used to be on the spectrum. They actually removed her
Mhm.
diagnosis a few years later. We did a lot of healing work. That's a story for another day, but we were on a very strict diet. And I was reading an article from a fellow mother in a group who said
Mhm.
they went across the seas to France. Their children were gluten free and casein free back then, and that the
Mhm.
children ate bread. And the mother was like, oh my gosh, now we have to do 6 months of cleansing to get that gluten out of their system. We're going to have regression. It's going to be a nightmare. And then she realized her kids had no behavioral issues following eating the bread.
Yeah.
And so then she's like, okay, wait a minute. That's so odd. When they eat bread at home, it's a nightmare. And so then
Yes.
she let them try pasta. And then she started digging and she realized it was never the gluten that everybody freaks out. Unless you're celiac, it's the glyphosate that's sprayed on the wheat and the barley
Oh,
and the rye. And
right.
so all of a sudden she's like, my kids don't have to have this massively stringent diet where you go to a birthday party and you have to bring your own food. And my kids are never going to live a quote unquote normal or neurotypical life. And so they
Right.
up and moved. They said, forget
Right.
it, forget it. We want our kids to have a great life. We're moving to Europe. And at that
Mhm.
point, that was at least 5 years ago. And I became relentless to my
Mhm.
husband of like, read this, let's go. Let's go. Let's give them a different life. I didn't just do this because I want to be organic. I did this because it changed my children's lives.
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting when you were talking about the strawberries. I just got back from a trip to Jordan and Israel, and
Oh, nice.
everybody on the trip was saying these strawberries taste
Mhm.
so good.
Yes,
They're
that's
just
right.
they taste better. They have more flavor.
Exactly.
And I went, oh, in my mind, I went, okay, we were
It
eating
is
what it was
exactly.
like. Yeah.
You know,
It's kind of
they
interesting.
have a festival here in Malta called Festa Frali, and Frali
Uh-huh.
is the Maltese word for strawberry. So it's the strawberry festival. It's one day a year, and the entire country drops everything they're doing to come and play strawberries all day long. And it really is. My cousin just came from the United States, and we stopped at a little farmer's thing on the side of the road, and we bought some olive oil from his land and some strawberries and some potatoes. And I said, try the strawberry, just try it. She was like, I've had the best strawberries. And I said, just try it. She took a bite and she was like, oh, I'm having an experience with strawberry. What is happening to my body right now? And I was like, that's what it's like to eat strawberries that are unmasked. That's what
Yeah.
it's like to have real strawberries that are grown with such love and reverence and
Uh-huh.
health. And it just,
Mhm.
and actually what I learned from the farmers, which I find interesting, is that the strawberries are one of the hardest fruits to grow because they can't touch the soil. They can't make contact
Oh,
at all with the soil. So they have to have this bag over it. And then here in Malta, they have this red spider. And if the red spider gets to the strawberry, they die. So
oh.
they still have to do some sprays, but the sprays are not that kind of spray. And then they
Mhm.
have to have them covered. And basically what they said, and I talk about this in my book, The Taste of Joy. I talk about the difficulties of growing strawberries because they're like a teenager. You have to watch without too much touching, but
Mhm.
you have to always keep your eye every day, and you have to
Mhm.
make sure that they're safe and
Mhm.
protected and not touched inappropriately, hitting the soil or having those spiders. And then you have to know when to step away and let them grow
Yeah.
on their own. And then they turn that lipstick red and become an adult. And then they have a
Yes.
party. Then they have a huge party here with strawberry sangria and strawberry wine and strawberry smoothies. And it is
Oh,
amazing. And live
oh.
band. And it's a party from morning till night. These people party over
Yes. Well, I'm curious how you got into the people. I mean, you you
here. That was
shared with
hard.
them your love and your
Yes.
desire for no GMOs, but were they skeptical? Did they
Yes.
sort of dance around you going, this
Oh,
lady
yes.
is
Well, yes. I had to act like a stalker, really,
ah,
to find these farmers because the farming community here and the local community is very tight, and they don't
uh-huh.
really invite a lot of newcomers, especially
Yes,
foreign
I
newcomers.
would think
Um,
so.
but because I write for the magazine, we don't just do an article. We come out with a camera crew. We interview
Uh-huh.
them at their farm. We showcase their family history. And so what happened was the potato farmer, Air Malta, called him and he said yes. And then he was so proud of what we did for them, because I'm not there to argue with them. I'm there to highlight what's so fascinating and
Right.
fabulous. And
Yeah.
so he was the one that put me in touch with the olive oil grower. And then from there, it's been very slow going, but I've been doing this for almost 3 years. So I
Mhm.
call my different farmers and go, okay, artichokes, who do you have? Because what my editor doesn't want me to do is use the same farmer twice. And that's
Oh,
hard.
yes.
That's
Right.
really hard. So
Yeah.
that's been tough, but I've built such an inner webbing inside the community that 2 weeks ago I had my book release party here, the Taste
Mhm.
of Joy book, and I invited all the farmers that are in my book.
Oh,
And they
oh,
came and sold their produce and their products and their signature products that are in the book, and also what we've showcased over the years. And my
uh-huh,
magazine did the party with me. And my farmers were so thrilled because you get to finally put a face with the name of these farmers,
uh-huh.
because they're like hidden gems in the hills. Even the locals don't
Yes.
know who they are.
Yeah.
And so, having them come out in public, people were really excited to see their face and to meet
Uh-huh.
them and buy their jam and buy their oil and buy their wine and talk to them. And
Uh-huh.
it's just been, so I did a huge party for them, and they loved it because I didn't charge anybody a fee to be there.
Oh,
Apparently, to do festivals here, all the farmers have to like pay a fee to have their table and sell. And for
uh-huh.
me, it was like, this is my gift. This is my love letter and my gift to you. So I just want you to
Mhm.
come, don't pay a penny, make all the 100% profit you make, and then that's yours. And
Yeah.
and honestly, I had to send out invitations in English and Maltese to really make sure they understood that I didn't have a hidden agenda, because
Yes.
people
Yeah.
here often, the money thing is difficult for people to understand, that sort of generosity. So
Yeah.
it was really unique. So they kept calling, going, "Are you sure I don't have to pay anything?" I was like,
Just
"I'm sure
want
you
to
don't."
check.
Yeah, and then one of them, like my favorite farmer, he's so cute and funny. And he called me, said, "Look, I really want to do your festival, but I don't have a credit card machine. I don't want to deal with, documenting all this." And I said, "Listen, this is a private property. It's a big land. Cash, baby, charge cash." And he was like, "Really? Then I'm in." I was like, so if you have it on a private property, you can do basically whatever you want. So we had a
Right.
bouncy house, we had a virtual reality roller coaster for the kids, we had an ice cream truck, we had food trucks, we had our farmers. I was signing my books. It was awesome.
Oh, it
But it was
sounds like a
such a
fun
great
party.
sell. And now the farmers are kind of like, "Oh, I do want to." They realize I'm really in it to win it. I'm in it to
Uh-huh.
showcase who they are. And I want
Uh-huh.
to sit at their table and learn. So what I do, because my editors are much more, they're 28. So they want to get in and get out. Try to make this
28
interview under 10
age or
minutes.
28 of them?
Age. They're 28
Age.
age.
Okay.
So they're like, "Can we like get this done in 10 minutes? Can we speed this?" And to me, I'm like, look, these people are like gems. I want to sit down and
Uh-huh.
hear all their stories. So what we do is I go and I interview on camera. And then when the magazine comes out, I go back to their house with my family and we sit at the table and
Oh,
whatever they want to show me. And then I let them tell me their stories because I want to know. And
yeah.
so, and my husband loves it. He's so funny when I did olive oil, because this guy, Jamie Oliver, flew over just to meet him because he grows this sacred white olive that turns pink when they're ripe. And it's just amazing. And
Uh-huh.
so I came home, we've been pressing olives all day. And my husband goes, "I am so proud of you and I'm so excited for you, but I'm trying so hard not to be jealous." Because he's at work all day and I'm out
Right.
playing, and his
Yeah.
mom came to visit and I'm like, "Let's go to this special restaurant and learn how to make ravioli today." It's like, "I'll be at work. You just go out there and live my best life. See you." So, but it
So
is
is your
like,
husband a foodie out as well?
he's way more. He's
Oh,
way more so than me. So honestly, it is kind of a crapshoot because he knows so much more than I do. And he has a palate that's much more, he loves spicy food and a lot of things that I won't touch. Like the
right.
signature food here is rabbit. And I'm like, "Oh, you can't. I can't. It's a no." It's a no for me. And my husband's like, "You're really not going to sit down and eat the rabbit?" And I'm like, "No, I'm really not going to sit down and
No,
eat the rabbit." And they serve
no.
horse here and there's just absolutely zero chance that
Oh,
I can eat
no,
that.
I can't. I'm from Texas. I
So
can't
I
eat a
can't do it.
horse.
It's a zero chance. So I really focus on the individual ingredient, the one thing that they grow. The only thing I've done is fish, because there's a
Oh,
sacred fish on the island.
uh-huh.
But
Uh-huh.
outside of that, I'm really more of like artichokes, olive oil, wine, jam,
Yeah.
carob.
Yeah. Do they have any beef? I mean, beef like
Um,
from a
they
cow?
do. It's really hard to find local beef, so they usually bring it in from Argentina and
Yes.
from some of the European countries. Um, Supposedly there's some cows here. I have yet to find them. There is
Ah.
cows for dairy, and I have
Mm,
found a place, so I'm hoping that'll be one of my next interviews. And
yeah.
then there's a lot of goats here, but for the goat and sheep cheese.
Oh,
But they
okay.
do a lot of pigs here. They do have a lot of pigs for
Oh,
for consumption.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay.
That's a lot, right?
Now, yeah, it is. But you hit the ground running when you got over there.
I
Did you
really
not?
did. I did. I not only did I do this, but I was the school van chaperone for the first year because they have these kind of older women that are retired that ride on the vans with the children to make sure that they're buckled and that nobody's being bullied.
Oh,
And
mhm.
that year of COVID, they were short. And so I didn't know where the school was. I couldn't drive my kids there. I didn't even know how to drive over here on the wrong side of the road, the left side of the road. And driving here is
Mhm.
scary as all get out. And so I rode the van with my kids every day for the first year. So I was like, I met such a different side of Malta too, because all my van ladies, I'm still friends with all of them. And so when I
Yes.
come to school now, they all run over and hug me and hug my kids. And it's just really sweet. But for me, it's funny because the school is kind of a posh, private school. And
Mhm.
much more affordable than we never could have afforded this in the United States. Let's just say
Yeah.
that much more affordable here. And when the parents caught wind that I was a school chaperone and I was on the vans, the parents were like, "Oh, parents don't do that." And I would look at them and go, "Really? You're telling me that if you move to a foreign country across the world in the middle of COVID, you have no idea where the school is or how they're getting there. You're telling me you wouldn't get on the bus if you could?" And they just kind of go, "Oh, well, I mean, maybe." And I'm like, "Okay, we're done here." Because like, you know what? You are not gonna, don't even try it, lady or ladies. Because a lot of people did that. They were like, we don't. I'm like, well, that's okay. You don't have to.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
doing it. And I've got your kids and I'm keeping them safe. So don't worry about it. I
Yeah.
got it handled.
Right.
But it was interesting because there is a lot of different areas of this country kind of
Mhm.
subscribe to
Mhm.
different life.
Mhm.
So it's been
Yeah.
fascinating because I live in this beautiful area and yet all my favorite friends are farmers. So somebody was trying to tell me about some top designer in Malta. We're having this party and this designer and this designer. And I was like,
Oh,
oh,
go. And so we
I was
can
like,
see.
I've never heard of them. And they're like, "You've never heard of them?" And I went, "I'm sorry, are they a farmer?" And they're like, "No." And I go,
Yes.
"Then I don't know them." So, I mean, I've gotten to pick and choose what life I want over
Right.
here. And I've,
Mhm.
I've been able to dabble on both sides. So yeah, I want to go and meet the designer. And I've even been to a party with the prime minister. But at the end of the day, my favorite people are the farmers. They're hilarious. They're happier
Mhm.
than most people I've ever met in my life, ever.
Well, I'd say
They're,
most
they're
farmers
love.
here, unless
They're
they're
happy,
huge farmers, are
happy.
stressed. No,
Oh,
here
no. Oh, I would
they're
still think
stressed,
happy.
and
Yeah.
the farmers here,
Yeah, I don't know. I just
I
always
think.
I didn't know farmers. I didn't know farmers in Georgia because I didn't live in the farming areas. I lived in the metropolis suburbs of Atlanta. But here,
I've
like
been
this,
to Atlanta, and I've never
you're
been
not
in a
seeing a
bigger
farmer
town.
there.
No, you have to take a train. My
Yeah.
friend that I had gone there to see, and I was going for a weekend workshop someplace out of the city. And she said, "Well, when you get to the airport, just get on a train and go
Oh
in
yeah.
for it." And I went, "What?" I'm in Tyler. We have an airport
Yes,
with
right.
two gates.
Atlanta airport is terrifying.
It
It is.
is.
My big goal, I started taking driving lessons over here to learn how to drive on the left, and their street
Yes.
rules are very different. They have very few stoplights here. Everything's a roundabout, and
Yeah.
basically, once you get in the circle, you have the right of way, but you got to make your way into that circle. It's terrifying. And
Are they
people are
aggressive?
Oh, so aggressive. It's
Ah,
like you have these really nice people and then they get in the car and they're the meanest people you've ever seen. And then they get out and they're like, "Bella, bye," and you're like, "I'm not friends with you anymore." Like it's awful. It really is just very
yeah.
stressful.
Yeah.
But driving over here, it's very different. But my goal was I'm going to take driving lessons and I want to be able to pick up my mother from the airport when she comes to visit. That was
Oh,
my
yes.
big goal. So I call my friends and I'm like, "How many hours should I arrive at the airport?" And my friend was like, "Okay, I know you're from a big country, but this airport has one terminal. You turn left at the McDonald's and then you're there. So please don't go hours ahead. You will be bored." And I'm
Oh,
like, "I
yes.
don't understand what you're saying to me." She's like, "Promise, go 30 minutes before you're fine."
Yes.
It's like,
Right.
what?
Yeah.
It was so cool. It's honestly, now I'm like, I don't want to go to a big airport. It is so much fun to go, hey, you can't miss me. I'll be right there at the end of your terminal. You'll find me. I'll be sitting across at the coffee, you know, which also I drink coffee now. Never in my life have I had coffee. I've never liked it. I always thought it tasted really gross. For some reason, the coffee is so fantastic over here that I now drink mocha.
Oh, yeah.
Hot chocolate with a shot of espresso.
Yes, right. I know you espresso people.
That's it though. But with my hot chocolate, I can't do just a straight espresso. Still not there. And
You
I don't
put
want to
hot
be there.
chocolate in it?
Yeah, I do a mocha. It's a hot chocolate with one shot of espresso. It's such a nice treat.
Oh,
I do coffee once a week with my best girlfriends. We have a date every weekend and we go have coffee. They have the espresso or whatever, cappuccino, but I do the mocha.
Yeah. Okay. Now we're coming close to the end of this.
Okay.
End of our time to share. And one thing that I'm so impressed about, I mean, you have done so many things since you hit the turf in Malta. But you've become a writer, or were you already writing?
Oh, I was already a writer. I already had 5 books out in the United States, but they were all on body healing. I did, yes.
Wow.
But they were all on body healing. And so moving over here, the deal was the government or the government agency gave my husband's company a grant. And so the partners that came with don't have a work visa. So everything I do here is for free. So I write for the magazine, I do all these things, and it's because I love it. And I'm not allowed to be in practice for bodywork anymore. But I don't want to stop writing. And so I was writing articles and learning about this farmers. And that's how I came to write The Taste of Joy back with my American publisher, Llewellyn, thank God, because Maltese publishing is really difficult to break into. And so I went back to my old publisher and I said, look, I have an idea. I'm living this life. I've spent over a year meeting these farmers. I want to talk about nourishing our souls. It's still body healing, but it's not the same. And Llewellyn specializes in self-help books. So I needed to stay in the self-help arena. I'd like to jump over and honestly write the story, all my stories of being here. I'd like to write kind of a memoir next with a different publisher because they don't work with that. But The Taste of Joy was really what I've been doing and what I've learned from these farmers and what I've learned from the individual foods, because they come with a personality and a message and a way to help us nourish our minds, our bodies, our souls in a totally, and I'll just say this quickly, I know we are coming to the end, but I never knew this, but the fruit trees grow free every other year. They need a whole year to bear down and begin again. And the farmers understand and respect this. That's us. Nobody's going to be in a shining year every year. Nobody's going to be showing out. And after we do go big with something, we do need that time to rest and recover. And the trees teach us so much. And remember that with a fruit tree, the very last thing to finally happen is the fruit. So all those things before, and you think, is it going to grow? Is it going to happen? Is my tree a dud? Is this happening in my life? It's never coming to culmination. But guess what? The last thing to ever grow on a fruit tree is the actual fruit. Just like
Had you ever seen a fruit tree produce in the States?
No, I hadn't. I really hadn't. And now I live in a house that has orange trees and tangerine trees and lemon trees and olive trees and almonds and carob and pomegranates. And it's so, and I go outside and I talk to them. Oh, you're so beautiful. Look at you. This is going to be my first year with olives. I planted those olive trees.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, the other ones have already been planted. My landlord's mother has planted the big trees for years and years, but the olive trees were all me. And this is going to be the first year that they produce olives. So they're finally budding and you're like, oh, you're doing it.
I did so good. I put it in the dirt.
And when you watch that, you really learn, and you learn to give yourself a break. You know, it's not going to be a grand year every year of my life, but it doesn't mean I'm not still growing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would like, I hate to call this to a halt because I could go on and I know you have a lot more to tell.
I know. But read the book. Go buy The Taste of Joy.
Read the book. Yes. And that book is out. It was released in January.
It was, and it was Women's World Book of the Week in February. I was very excited for that.
Oh
And,
my
and
goodness.
it's called The Taste of Joy, and the subtitle is Mediterranean Wisdom for a Life Worth Savoring. And honestly, those farmers that I talk about in the book, if you go to Oh My Malta and you click on cuisine and you see Emily in Malta, you can see a video with every face, every story, every
Oh,
interview. And that's fun. So if you see somebody and
yeah.
go, I want to see that olive oil press and how it
Yes.
works, you can go right on to Oh My Malta and go see Sammy and watch how the olives come to be.
Is that all in the book?
It's all in the book.
Okay, good. Because I've ordered my book.
Thank
I'm
you. And
waiting for
please
it.
leave a review. Please, please
Oh,
leave a review.
reviews are so important. I know that.
It breaks my heart how much pressure the reviews are, but it really does help people know that it's a good book.
Yeah.
Honestly, to me, it's a sweet, easy read.
Yeah.
It's just sweet.
Mhm. All right. Now, you know that I like to ask my guests 2 questions. I've sort of given a
Ask me
hint to
anything.
it. Yeah. Oh, really?
Of course. I am literally
Yes,
an
I
open
am an
book.
open book. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. But this came from a book from Julia Cameron. If you're
Okay.
not familiar with her books, wonderful. It's Never Too Late to Begin Again.
Oh, I
Where
love it.
oh yeah, and it hit so many of my peers in where they are in their life. But anyway, so I'm going to ask you about joy because one of the chapters is dedicated to joy. And I think joy these days is really hard for us to hone in on, to know that when we're experiencing joy and elation, that it really is a gift and it can give us so much happiness in our life. So, with that, I'd like for you to share, because you have to have several stories here, but only one. Tell me a story when you felt pure joy.
Oh, I feel it more often than most now because I
Uh-huh.
know what it feels like. So
Uh-huh.
let me answer it differently, if I may. That I'm going to do it from the body perspective because that's what I've spent 25 years studying. Joy
Sure.
is felt in the physiology of the body. It tracks into the muscular system. It's an emotion that when it comes back up, your whole body feels it again. And so to me, I felt joy when my grandpa used to smoke his cigar pipe. And if I ever catch wind of that smell, I can reassess joy. It comes out of me.
You
So
sure can.
joy to me is olives, my olive trees, and watching olives turn into oil, and watching my kids take interest and learning from that, and just those experiences when you stop and you let yourself track it into your system. It can be so minor to somebody else, but it can mean everything to you. That to
Mhm.
me, that's the real joy.
Mhm. Joy is very much a personal thing. It's ours. It's all ours. So anyway, but
And we
there,
get to keep it. We get to keep it.
yeah.
If you try, it tracks into you.
Hmm. Yeah. All right. The next question is, would you share 3 tips to create more joy in one's life?
The top one is absolutely the way you see the world around you. It is a mindset thing. Do you focus on the one mistake that's staring at you, or do you focus on the beauty of the picture?
Right.
And that will change your life. So that's my number one most important. Number 2 is do something that scares you, but not because it's scary. Do something that you want to do, that you're tempted to do, but you always made excuses why you can't. Try
Mhm,
it anyway. Do
mhm,
anything. Speak, step out of your comfort zone, just ever so slightly. That will create joy. It will. It lends itself to bravery.
mhm.
And lastly, is joy to me is best friends with gratitude. And when you express gratitude, joy shows up. When joy shows up, gratitude always follows. They're there.
Yeah.
So do things that are slower, softer, more mindful, and mean something to you. And
Mhm.
then let yourself feel it. Like I just don't think we let ourselves feel it. I think is the biggest issue in my mind is when happy visits and then when deeper joy visits, we don't sit still to let it stay as long as it feels like staying.
Mhm,
And that's the
mhm.
part that I think when you feel happy or when you feel even deeper and you feel joyful, close your eyes for a minute, take that internal picture and let yourself stay in that moment until it decides to move on, not you. Stay in it. That's the best. That's the best advice I could give.
That's a good advice. Very good. I appreciate that. Good lessons to learn today, as I said. So let me say just a few words to my audience that I like to close with every week. It's always a challenge to step up and to help a friend, even though they're a friend. We think sometimes we're pushing too much or opening too much or exposing ourselves too much. But if you have a friend that is struggling, or you just have another friend you want to share this with, that's your opportunity today to pick up the phone or send this podcast over to someone else. Second Wind is all about helping women change and men, Second Wind and men change and become who they really want to be. Because when you're happy, your life soars. So I want that for everybody that's listening today. So thank you for being here. It's always great to know you're listening and to know you're sharing. So have a great day. I look forward to seeing you next week or hearing from you next week or you just being present. Thank you, guys. Have a great week.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.